Hello, and welcome to the first episode of Soul Speaks, our new introduction to the culture of safety in the Soul Group. In this podcast, we'll discuss safety within the Soul Group, not just through regulations, but also by sharing real-life experiences, successes, and, unfortunately, accidents that have provided us with valuable lessons. Soul Speaks gives a voice to expert colleagues who want to help us work better and more safely. This episode is for everyone who works with oxygen, those who fill cylinders, tanker truck drivers, maintenance technicians, technicians working at customer sites, and all those working with and delivering oxygen in the home care sector. 10 minutes, 4 rules, the ones that can save your life. Before the 4 rules, one fundamental thing needs to be understood. Oxygen does not burn, but it makes everything else burn much easier and much more violently. There is 21% oxygen in the air. There is 99.5% in our cylinders. At this concentration, the world changes. Materials that do not burn in air, steel, aluminum, fireproof clothing, in pure oxygen can burn like paper. A piece of steel pipe in oxygen at 40 bar burns out like a candle. And large concentrations are not needed. Already at 25%, just 4% more than normal, clothes burn much faster. At 30%, even fireproof ones are at risk. That's why the rules I'm telling you now are not bureaucracy. The first rule is perhaps the most counterintuitive. A drop of oil can cause an explosion. I'm not exaggerating. Mineral oils, workshop grease, WD-40, motor oil, petroleum jelly have a high-pressure oxygen auto-ignition temperature of just 200 to 230 degrees. It seems high, but in a moment I will explain how in an oxygen system you can reach 1,000 degrees in a fraction of a second. At those 1,000 degrees, a trace of grease is like gasoline on a campfire. This means clean and dry hands before touching any oxygen components. No generic lubricant on the threads. No grease on the seals. If you need to lubricate, the only product allowed is a perfluorinated lubricant specifically qualified for oxygen, and nothing else. A tube of generic grease near a filling ramp is like a match near a barrel of gunpowder. And for those who work in home care, this also applies to the creams that patients use on their faces. Vaseline, cocoa butter, ointments with paraffin. Near the nasal cannula that delivers oxygen, they are fuels. There have been facial fires. The second rule is closely related to the first. In an oxygen system, only materials qualified for oxygen service are used. Period. No exceptions. I'll give you the most classic and most dangerous example. Gaskets. In the workshop, you will find many gaskets made with different materials. NBR, neoprene, nylon. They are great for many substances, but in an oxygen system, they burn. The right gaskets for oxygen are only with a reduced set of materials. Among them, PTFE, what you know as Teflon, is usually the preferred one. It seems like a trivial difference, but in the case of accidents, fitting the wrong gasket is among the most common causes. A maintenance technician who is in a hurry takes the wrong gasket from the drawer, reassembles, fills with oxygen, and at the first pressure cycle, fire. The same goes for metals. Not all metals behave the same way in oxygen. Monel and copper are the best. They resist combustion. Stainless steel is fine up to certain pressures. Aluminum outside specific applications is forbidden. It burns violently. And the components must be cleaned for oxygen service, the famous oxygen cleaning, with certified procedures that remove all traces of grease and particulates. A clean component is packaged in a sealed bag with a "Cleaned for Oxygen Service" label. Do not open it before the time of assembly, and assemble it with clean hands. Third rule, and probably the most important in everyday life. Oxygen valves always open slowly. To understand why, think about the bicycle pump. When pumping fast, the pump body heats up. It is the compression of the gas that generates heat. Now imagine the same thing, but with oxygen at 200 bar entering an empty cylinder from a bar. If the valve opens suddenly, the gas inside the cylinder is compressed so quickly that there is no time for the heat to dissipate. The temperature jumps over 1,000 degrees for a fraction of a second. If there's a gasket there, a trace of grease, a particle of dust, anything that can burn, it catches fire. The gasket burns, the heat reaches the metal, and within seconds, a fire develops. This mechanism is called adiabatic compression, and the statistics of accidents in the oxygen industry identifies it as the most frequent cause of triggering. Prevention is simple. Open slowly. 3 seconds for a cylinder valve. 5 to 10 seconds for a high-pressure line valve. After maintenance, even slower. Pressurization should be done in steps, waiting, checking, and going up step by step. Those 3 seconds feel like an eternity when you're in a hurry. But those 3 seconds are the difference between a quiet opening and a fire. You all know the last rule, but not everyone takes it seriously enough. Never smoke near oxygen. In the plant, the rule is clear. No cigarettes. But the real problem is at the patient's homes. What I am about to tell you is not a hypothesis. Patients on home oxygen therapy lighting a cigarette with a nasal cannula on. The oxygen that comes out of the cannula enriches the air around the face. Not a little. That area is well over the 23.5% that defines an enriched atmosphere. The flame of the cigarette becomes more intense. The plastic cannula catches fire. The fire spreads to clothes, to bed linen. In a few seconds, the person is engulfed in flames. And when someone tries to extinguish with a blanket, it doesn't work. The oxygen absorbed by the tissues feeds the fire from below. If you are a home care transporter, nurse, healthcare provider, you are often the only qualified person that patient sees. The time you spend explaining this rule, in simple, direct words, looking the patient in the eye. Don't smoke in the room where you use oxygen. Never. It can cost your life. That time can literally save a person. And on each subsequent visit, repeat it. Repetition saves lives. 10 minutes, 4 rules. We repeat them for the last time. 1. 0 grease and oils. Never. Not even a fingerprint on a fitting. 2. Correct materials. PTFE seals, not rubber. Oxygen clean components. Qualified metals. 3. Slowly open the valves. 3 seconds for a cylinder. 4. 0 smoke near oxygen. No cigarettes in the patient's room. Oxygen is our product, our work, and for millions of patients, it is their life. He deserves our respect. Every time. Thank you for listening. See you at the next episode of Soul Speaks.